Hey guys, welcome back to another review with OrmsTV. Today we have the newly released Nikon D500 here for you, and we're going to do a quick little review on this camera. As you can see from the background and all the noises going on, today we've come down to the Killarney International Raceway in Cape Town. There's a practice session going on today for the National Superbike Championship that's happening over the weekend, and we're going to use this bad boy to shoot these guys on track, see what kind of shots we get. So let's get out there and see what we got. So before we get going, let me give you a quick rundown of the specs here. So this is an all-new design for Nikon. The D500 features a full magnesium alloy body. It's got the flippy outy rear screen, which is very handy when you're shooting video. All new sensor in this unit as well. It uses a brand new 20.9 megapixel CMOS sensor. It is a DX crop. So, you do get that 1.5 times magnification factor. Very, very handy when you're shooting sports or wildlife. This little unit runs 153 autofocus points, with 99 of them being cross-type points. So having the cross-type points should make the camera absolutely phenomenal at tracking focus. And that's something we're going to be testing out on the track just shortly for you. In addition to the autofocus, you also have something brand spanking new for Nikon, and that's 4K video. Now, the 4K video is recorded at an additional 1.3 crop, so we're yet to see how useful that is, but I'll give that a quick test and you can decide for yourself on that. Now, this unit is really billed as being a spiritual successor to the much venerated D300 and D300S. In between, there's been other models to sort of fill the gap, like your 7000, your D7100 and your D7200. But nothing has really captured what the D300 and 300S were for Nikon. And hopefully this unit will be exactly that. So what I'm going to do to start off with is shoot racers coming almost straight at us. I'm shooting some burst and just see how the camera's tracking autofocus handles that. So we'll have to check the results when we get to put it onto a larger screen of a computer, but the performance seemed really good to me. So what we're going to do is we're going to move to a different section of the track and just keep trying this camera in some different scenarios. By the way, the lens I'm shooting with here is the 200-400 f4. Quite a nice Nikon lens. Yeah, performance pretty solid. Okay, so we're going to try and shoot the guys as they come around this fast sweeping left-hander. I've switched down to the 70-200 2.8 just to give me a little bit more width and ability to get a little bit, or at least to focus a little bit closer than what the 200-400 can. So I'm going to see what we can do with this. I'm going to try the new 3D continuous autofocus system and we'll see how that pans out. Seemed really good. Yep, that's pretty much held it sharp all the way through. I'm just going to do a lens change. The way that it autofocuses, pretty impressive. And when you have the 3D autofocus on, it's almost like the camera tries to predict where your subject is going to be. So through the viewfinder, you can actually see the little autofocus point switch. The autofocus is locked solid all the way through the turn. And I mean, we're running at maximum burst here. We're getting 8 or 9 frames per second. I'd say for a DX, non-100,000 Rand camera, that's pretty impressive. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just do a quick test on the camera's low light performance. We're going to have to fake it a little bit because it isn't particularly dark outside. But I'm going to duck into this little garage here, and we're going to push the shutter speed up, push the aperture up, and then just compensate for that with the ISO. So, you know, faking a little low light performance. Let's have a look. So right now I have it set at 1/2500 for your shutter speed, and I've taken the ISO up to 32,000. So that should give us a good idea of how the grain performs. So I'm going to drop the ISO down to 12,800 just to give us a comparison, and I'll compensate with the shutter speed and aperture. Okay, so I just want to give you a quick taste of what the video capabilities in the new D500 is like. So first I'm going to shoot into this garage, just shooting at full HD, and we're going to do it at 60 frames a second. So let's just see what that looks like. So you can see the autofocus trying to compensate. It's doing a pretty decent job as objects are moving around. It's hunting a little bit, so it's not fantastic, but all in all pretty good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the autofocus off and change to manual focus. Okay, so hopefully with a bit of manual focus it should work better. So we can use the tilt out screen for this. Oh yeah, that's better. Hopefully we're staying fairly sharp. Okay, that's pretty perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to 4K video. So you'll immediately see the crop factor coming into play. When you shoot 4K on this camera, it immediately applies an additional 1.3 crop. So that's over and above your already 1.5 crop that you get due to the DX format. Is that a bit of a downside? Yes. Is it great for if you're shooting over long distances? Yes. Confined spaces like this? Probably not, but let's see how it looks. So this is more or less from the exact same angle as I shot the full HD video. So just look at this crop factor. So that's quite a significant crop that's being applied. The video quality itself seems pretty good. So look, this camera probably not going to be at the top of anyone's wish list for shooting video with, but it's definitely capable. The autofocus hunts a little bit. That might be due to the lens I'm using here, but it's not ideal. If you're looking for a dedicated video camera, look somewhere else. So we're back in the studio and we've had a look at the pictures. We've edited most of the video. So we just want to, sort of run through some of the details again, and specifically I'm going to bring up some of the pictures just for you guys to have a look, and I'll just make a couple of comments on them. So the first batch that we're just going to bring up is some of the pictures where we were shooting on the sort of the fast sweeping left-hand turn, and we were running through the 3D tracking, autofocus, the burst speed, how the camera locks on. And I'm just going to reiterate that I'm actually very impressed by the performance. You can see from the images, the way that it locks on, the sharpness is absolutely there. Your burst remains really, really solid. We're running at between 8 and 10 frames per second there, and there's zero losses. I mean, we shot about, just over 700 pictures during the day. And out of all of those images, there's probably 5 where the camera didn't maintain, solid autofocus throughout the burst. And I mean, even then, we're talking about 10 images shot in succession, and there's one that, the focus lost a little bit, which, I mean, that's really, really impressive for a camera in this caliber. Remember, yes, it is a fairly expensive camera, but it's not a, 100,000 Rand Nikon D5. And yet it packs a lot of the D5's features, specifically the autofocus system, into a much more compact body and gives you pretty damn impressive performance, really. The next batch that we'd like to bring up here is the low light images. Now, I know it's not strictly the right way to do it, but it's sort of, the only scenario that we really had, artificially hyping up the ISO by, pushing the shutter speed really high, and shooting at quite a small aperture. If you look at the 32,000 ISO image, it's like really quite unimpressive. There's a lot of breakup, a lot of softness in there. You lose a lot of pixel quality in that image. The 12,800 ISO image is a lot better. It's a lot more clean. Still quite a bit of breakup, which is maybe a little bit worrying. I'd assume that if you drop it down lower, maybe at a 6,400, you'd probably get a really solid image. And quite frankly, that's enough, sort of ISO peaking for most people. So is it that important? Probably not. This camera is going to see use in daylight, or sort of like twilight or early morning. That's the type of environment where you're going to be using it, and for anything like that, you will not have a problem with its low light performance. No issues whatsoever. So now for that conclusion part, what do I really think of this camera? Well, I have to say that in terms of the sheer raw performance that you get out of it, and we're talking about burst speed, autofocus, how it tracks, that kind of thing, it is absolutely phenomenal. It does the job like it's nobody's business. There's no other camera for under 90,000 Rand really that can do that. You need to step up to your Nikon D5s and Canon 1DX cameras to get that level of performance. And it's really impressive that Nikon crammed all of that into a comparatively tiny body. The build quality on the camera feels fantastic. The controls are very intuitive. It's easy enough to use. It's easy to pick up the camera and get quite fantastic shots, even if you're a relative amateur. And I think that's something that's really important here. If you're the type of person who's out in the bush all the time, you're up in Kruger or Addo and it's wildlife, or you're shooting sport or motor racing or anything like that, and you don't quite want to go up to that level where it's 100,000 Rand for the body, but you want performance that's almost as good, this is probably the unit to go for at the moment. There's nothing else in the price bracket, in the segment that it competes in, that gets even close to it. It is a very, very good camera, no matter how you look at it. Well guys, that concludes our review of the new Nikon D500. I hope you enjoyed that. As always, if you did enjoy it, please don't forget to leave us a like. Comment if there's anything that you'd like to know, or if you have an opinion on our reviews. And if you really enjoyed it, subscribe and you'll see some more content like this. Thank you very much.